conspiracy theories, you become a target of theirs because they're like, there's someone waking up. There's someone that's not on the couch attending church on Sunday and going back to their sports routines during the week. People that are waking up when we kind of go to these websites are a much bigger threat to them because the Lord's people are waking up. This 144,000 that is going to completely kick the butt of Satan and his millions of forces. And you do that, and we do that through the power of the Most High. And so that's, one of their targets. And I don't think I know anybody in the 144K who really gives a rip, I've always said if you're in fear, then ask the Lord to help you to love Him more, because perfect love casts out fear. And those who love the Lord are not in fear of what Satan or what man can do. They're more afraid of disappointing the Lord. That's going to be the biggest fear of anyone that, the 144K that I know, is just in the fact of disappointing the Lord, the disappointment. I would rather die a million strange disease deaths than disappoint the Lord. Stand before Him in judgment and be a disappointment to Him. And so I always pray and ask Him to help me to be a blessing to Him. And that's all I want. I want to be a blessing to Him. And He has me work with His people. Years ago, the first things He ever told me was, lead my people back to me. And so that's what I work at doing. I've got over 60 articles on the internet. You can go to SherryTalkRadio.com, get on my articles page. And week after week after week, just pounding for people to get back to Him, to ask Him to reveal the truth in all things to them so that He can lead and guide them and pull them out of the errors and apostasies that they are in. And, I've never led anybody to me. And so I don't know how so many people get this garbage where they talk about me on the internet. I don't see how they get it. But they just want something to discredit me by, to make themselves look better. And that's okay. I haven't put up with that garbage for years. I don't even go to it. I don't even read half the sites anymore. I stumble on it every once in a while. I find it amusing. The Lord pretty much keeps me away from that. He'll have something to say to me about it if I'm reading something that somebody has written. And some of the stuff I've been talking about for so long now, I just don't understand how people don't see it. How they don't see it. Some of the biggest eye-openers, the serpent seed line, the UFO agenda, things that aren't even eye-openers anymore, because they're just like, oh, Paul's false apostle, yeah, I knew that. I always felt that. I hear that all the time from people. I always knew there was something wrong with that guy. And now they have the freedom of conscience to say it because no one's holding a bat over their head, forcing them to accept the brainwashing that the churches have done. They're practically saying, worship Paul or you're going to go to hell. Excuse me? I worship the Most High. Worship Paul. What does that tell you? Does red flags go off yet, folks? And you Paul lovers out there? You'd get out of your false doctrines if you'd stop reading his garbage, because he's pushed 99% of them in the churches today. All the false doctrines coming from Paul. You threw out Paul, you would get back to the truth of what Yahushua and his 12 apostles taught. The Lord didn't go to heaven and make a mistake and negate everything He ever taught the 12 apostles and put Paul on earth to rewrite and re-say everything the Lord ever said. That's what the church is based. That's what you have to believe to accept anything that Paul says. And naturally, the RCC, when they put this stuff together along with the Mithraic leaders back in the early days, and throughout the actual literature that the early Christians had, worked together to bring about the RCC version of this KJV that we have to ensure that Paul dominated, because he was one of them. And I've often said that today's KJV is the modern-day Garden of Eden, where you have the tree of life and the tree of death. And if you follow one, Yahushua, then you're eating from the tree of life. And if you are following Paul, then you're being led into the tree of death. And that's basically what it is, folks. And the Lord allows it. Of course he does. He allowed the tree of death in his Garden of Eden. So why wouldn't he allow the tree of death in this word, this KJV, that people call his word? Because, like I said before, when the Lord referred to his word, it was the Torah, because the KJV didn't exist when the Lord existed. KJV is like a modern-day creation. It had nothing to do with even being a book when the Lord walked down the earth with his apostles. One of the interesting things I've been reading about the last couple of weeks is early Jewish history and archaeology. It's really very interesting. Back hundreds, thousands of years ago, just right after the fall of man, and after Noah's flood, and the Israelites, the first time when they started building around Israel and stuff, and the archaeologists have dug up a lot of the ancient artifacts from the early Israelites. And it paints a different picture, and it's a very interesting picture, because what you see is, a people that, they say only 1% of the Israelites actually even lived in Jerusalem, that 99% of them lived as farmers in the outsides, in the hills and the valleys and the fields. They were peasants and farmers, 99% of them. Most of them would never even visit Jerusalem in their lifetimes. And this is before the Babylonian captivity, the first one. So this is way back, for just several hundreds of years when they were just living there. And so it gets interesting. Even with the prophets, they mention Isaiah, and it was all just seen as we would term as a middle-class boys club running Jerusalem. These are actually the prophets they're referring to, because the people were so out of tune with Jerusalem, and they didn't have a modern-day media like we have now, and that not a lot of the people would even listen to what the prophets had to say, and they had their own worship going with this Asherah, and you can study that. I've talked about that before, the Astarte, the Ashtaroth, the Asherah, and they've dug up all these idols that the early Israelites had worshipped, had believed, had in their homes in ancient Israel. And so it's very, very interesting just to get a picture of how things were back then. I don't even know why I bring it up, but I'm going to get to some questions from listeners. Like I said, if you have a quick question for the show, you can send it to SherryTalkRadio at yahoo.com. Turn up the mic. I don't know what's wrong with my mic. The little mic thing on my computer has disappeared. And my speaker is turned all the way up. So I'm not sure what's going on with my mic. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to get some kind of a new headset or something. So yeah, that's all I can do, folks. My mic is turned all the way up. I can't turn it up possibly any higher. I'll just have to get a new microphone or something. I'm not sure. Have you been noticing an increase in military air traffic in your area? Something is going on here at East Coast. Well, I always have a little bit of it out here. For some reason, they like me out here. You mean like the Hueys and all that stuff? I don't know. Seems pretty normal around here.